Welcome to our weekly Forex forecast, and today we are going to take a look at the week of April 6th to the 10th, 2020. Just a quick disclaimer here before we get started. This is for educational purposes only. Trading is a risky business, so please be careful with your money, especially right now when the market is completely wild and volatile. So as usual, we'll start off by taking a look at our calendar here. And so let's see what we have going on. All right, so starting the week off here, we have Bank of Canada Business Outlook Survey, and also actually this investor confidence numbers for Eurozone here as well. As we can see, the numbers that are coming out right now are worse than expected for the most part here, and I expect the numbers to actually continue to get worse just because of everything that's going on in the market right now. And in regards to the coronavirus here, we do see that there have been some news stories in regards to some vaccines being developed. Right now, they are quite far in regards to them being able to be used on humans. So once we see that there is actually a confirmation of a vaccine that is actually effective, one in preventing it, and also if there's a medicine that comes out that actually solves the problem or cures people, that will help turn the markets around. So keep an eye out for any kind of news stories in regards to that, because once that happens, we are likely to see markets shift dramatically. So that's always something that we have to basically keep in mind as we are trading here, because it will change things. All right, so coming up here, we have Reserve Bank of Australia cash rate here and statement from Reserve Bank of Australia. At this point, they are at 0.25%, so not really expecting them to drop any further. Pretty much everybody has cut interest rates as far as the central bank stands. So right now, all that we have to really take a look at would be the commentary from RBA in regards to what their forecasts are in terms of the economy and all of that, and how much support they're willing to provide the market. And then on Tuesday here, we also have, so just a quick question here, is everybody able to hear me first of all? Yes, thank you. All right, so looks like, Gloria, it may be something at your end. You may want to unmute, make sure your speakers are not on, are not muted. Okay, so then during the week here, basically a whole bunch of numbers here, but nothing critical on Tuesday here. And then we have OPEC meetings here. So last week we heard some comments and there were some news stories in regards to President Trump coming out and saying that we are likely to hear something from Russia as well as Saudi Arabia in regards to cutting production numbers. And the numbers that were put forward were quite a bit, actually, in regards to they were almost 50% cut. And we know that they will not be willing to cut their production by 50% because at the prices that the oil is trading at, it will not be enough revenues that that would be able, or that the countries will be able to see. So they cannot cut production. So we did see that oil was impacted by that. Now, one thing that OPEC has said is that they would be willing to cut production, or the OPEC members would be willing to cut oil production if other countries like US, Canada, Russia, of course, Mexico, all of these countries also join OPEC in cutting production. And US has not said anything, and for that matter, actually, Canada hasn't said anything about cutting production either, although there have been some rumors in regards to cutting production. So in Canada here, so we'll see how that plays out. But the important thing here would be to keep an eye out for any comments that come out of out of OPEC because these comments can drive the price of oil, which in turn will have an impact on Canadian dollar if you are trading Canadian dollar. So that's something to keep in mind here. And then we also have FOMC meeting minutes here. Now, at this point, we know that Fed is basically throwing everything at the markets in terms of both the purchasing of securities, and basically they're buying everything there is to buy at this point. They're going even further than they went when we had the, what do you call it, the 2008, 2009 financial crash. So at this point, basically, I don't know what else they can do at this point, but if we see that there's even more support that the Fed is providing, maybe that will support the markets. But at this point, I think this is more all, the trading is basically just waiting, just based on sentiments more than anything else at this point. Everything that the central banks are throwing at the market is not really doing a whole lot. And then we have Bank of Japan Governor Kuroda speaking here. So with Japan here, they have been trying to basically do what they can in regards to managing their currency here as well. We have seen that US dollar has strengthened, but generally we see when the market conditions are the way they are currently, this much fear in the market, or I should say risk-off environment, Japanese yen usually strengthens, and we have not seen Japanese yen strengthen as much as we would normally expect, even though US dollar has strengthened. So that means that they are trying to manage things at their end. So with this here, we'll just have to see what they come out with more. So far, they have pledged a lot of stimulus here, but we'll see if they talk anything about any kind of intervention in terms of the currency markets that will cause Japanese yen to drop. So that's what we need to keep an eye on for that. Now, we also have ECB monetary policy meeting accounts here. This is similar to what we have for FOMC. With this one here, there should be no real surprises. Just like everyone else, ECB is also throwing everything they have at the markets. So basically, if they provide more stimulus, maybe that will help the markets. But other than that, I'm not really expecting too much change in terms of what ECB can do at this point. The interest rates are at 0, so not really expecting them to go below 0 at this point. And then we have unemployment, sorry, or I should say employment data coming out of Canada here, as well as unemployment claims from the US. And as we have seen with all the different, or all kinds of businesses shutting down, the unemployment claims have gone up drastically because a lot of people have been laid off. And we are seeing that there's about 5 billion of unemployment claims that are expected. Last time these numbers came out, they were larger than what the expectations are. And at this point, we're likely to see a big number as well, whether it's 5 million or more. We are likely to see a large number here. So that could have a negative impact on the US dollar. But at this point, a lot of that is already priced in because everybody's expecting that number. So we may not have a big impact unless this number is drastically higher than what's expected here. In that case, we are likely to see a negative impact on the US dollar. And then of course we have consumer sentiment numbers here. I think the consumer sentiment numbers here are likely to be worse than what the expectations are here. So that could have a negative impact on the US dollar. So keep an eye on that. And then going into Asian session here on Thursday, we do see the CPI here for China. And if it comes in below expectations here, we're likely to see a negative impact on Australian dollar and New Zealand dollar because those are the two countries that are that have close trade relationship with the China. And when Chinese number drop, we generally see a negative impact on these currencies, on Australian dollar, New Zealand dollar as well. And Friday here, we have CPI numbers. We are expecting a negative number here. But again, if this is worse than expected, then we could see a negative impact on US dollar as well. So right now, though, overall, the market is really being driven by sentiment more so than data, because it's just a foregone conclusion right now that data is expected to be below expectations and negative because of basically what's happening around the world at this point. So let's go on to our charts now and see where things stand. Okay, so we'll start off with euro dollar. As usual, we have seen that market has gone back and forth here. So we were at quarter end just a week or so ago, and going into the quarter end, a lot of the big funds and financial institutions, basically they need to manage the asset allocation. So as a result of what's been going on in the markets, with all the equity market stocks dropping, the asset allocation was sort of out of whack, because generally they have certain percentage that needs to be invested in stocks versus bonds and all of that. And with the stocks dropping considerably, those proportions were, like I said, out of whack. And then so the funds had to buy stocks or equities in order to bring them back into the proportions that they need to be at. So because of that, we did see a big jump up in the stock market, and now that that is done, we saw that prices drop. So we do have a bearish candle close at this point. I'm not hugely positive in regards to the equities going up. I think there is still room for equities to drop here. So when equities drop, we also see that our risk currencies will drop as well, like euro, pound, and all of Aussie, all of those. So as a result here, I am looking for price to drop further. And in regards to our to the bias here, bias is to the downside here. I'm looking for price to drop further. And first target here is 1.0650, which is the base of these candles. This is where price had bounced up from. But we could see price drop further here, 1.0490 or 1.05. Now, having said that, though, we have seen that euro has dropped a fair bit, and this week we have not seen pound drop as much. So we could see euro hold and pound drop. So that's something we want to keep an eye on. But for now, bias for euro dollar is to the downside, and 1.0650 and 1.05 are the two targets to the downside here for euro dollar. And then let's take a look at pound here. So this is where I was saying that our euro, as we can see, has had a drop. Pound, on the other hand, has really held. Basically, it's been holding up here. So we did see a big drop, a pullback, and then it hasn't really done a whole lot. We do have a bearish candle close here. I am looking for a further drop here for pound. And in terms of our targets here, we are right into this support and resistance level here. I am looking for a further drop here, so bias is bearish, and we could see a pullback into 1.2360, so watch out for that. But looking for a move similar to this, and if it breaks through that, we could over the next weeks see this further drop here. But for now, bias is bearish, and first target is 1.2020 here, and then below that we will have other levels in here. So next target would be 1.18, I would say. So 1.2020 and then 1.1800 will be the two targets for pound dollar. Aussie dollar here, similarly, we saw that price dropped, bounced back, and now we do have a bearish candle close here. So looking for price to drop further. As we can see, we see that price is still holding below this previous support resistance level. So bias here is bearish. And in terms of our targets here, first target is 1.5700, and then below that 1.5520. So basically, I'm looking for price to come and retest the bottom here. It may not happen this coming week, but over the next couple of weeks, I am looking for a drop here. So bias is bearish for Aussie dollar as well. New Zealand dollar, same thing here. We see that price is holding below this pullback level now. So bias, again, is bearish. We have a nice bearish candle close here. Although the movement is not as wild as what we have seen previously. So I think we may see a bit of a, more of a, they're not exactly settled moves because their market is still swinging wildly, where before we were seeing, for example, for euro, we would see a 100 pip range. Now we are seeing a 500 pip range, or even for the pound like that. But I think we may see markets come down a bit, but I am still looking for a drop here. So bias is bearish for New Zealand dollar as well. First target here is 0.56 and then 0.5470. So bearish bias for New Zealand dollar as well. Dollar CAD here, this one has been interesting in the sense that Canadian dollar has taken a big hit because of the oil prices. With oil prices dropping and oil being one of the major exports of Canada, Canadian dollar has tanked essentially. But we did see that when the comments came out in regards to President Trump announcing that we are likely to see cuts from both Saudi Arabia as well as Russia there, that pushed the price up for oil. And I think we may see more volatility in the oil prices in this week here because of the OPEC market, OPEC meetings, as well as I think with US trying to negotiate some sort of a deal between Russia and Saudi Arabia, and in order to get rid of that price war that is killing oil right now. So if something comes out of that, we could see Canadian dollar essentially do better than expected. But right now, as we can see here, US dollar actually is declining. Dollar CAD has a lower highs here, but I'm not totally convinced that we are out of the woods yet in this regard. So my bias here is neutral. I'm looking I think we could potentially get something like this because if they're able to reach an agreement in regards to the oil, then we're likely to see a drop. And if they actually stick to that agreement, we could even see a move like this to the downside. But the way things stand, if nobody can agree to anything, then we're likely to see a move to the upside. In that case, Canadian dollar will decline and dollar CAD is likely to go up. So at this point, I am neutral on this. I am looking to see, basically I'm waiting to see what happens with OPEC, and if there is any sort of resolution that comes out between Saudi Arabia and Russia, because otherwise I will look for this one to go higher. So neutral bias for dollar CAD for the moment. Euro pound here, this one has been interesting, as we can see some wild moves in a currency that, or in a currency pair that generally does not move a lot. So right now we have seen that euro has been dropping. So the candle close here for the week is actually bearish for euro or euro pound, as euro still is weaker than British pound here. But now we're starting to come into support levels here. As we can see, prices bounced off of this level here. So bias still is bearish. I think there's more room for euro pound to drop. But something to keep in mind here would be if we see a flip in euro versus the pound. So euro has been dropping, but as we saw on Friday, it was actually, we saw pound was dropping more than euro. So if that switches now, so if pound starts to drop and euro holds, then this is likely to go higher. So right now, I would say bias is bearish, and we could still see this drop to the downside here. Target would be 0.8650. However, if it does not go through 0.8750, then we could see a move like this. So that's something to watch out for. For now, bearish, but with caution for euro pound. Euro Swiss franc here, this one has been in this range forever. So just like, well, actually, Swiss National Bank is notorious for managing their currency and intervening in the market. So with this one here, it's just been it's just been sideways right now. So overall bias still remains to the downside. But as we can see for all these weeks here, price really hasn't moved much. It's been trading in this 100 pip range. So right now we do have a bearish candle close at this point. So I would say bias is still bearish, but keep in mind that this one could get stuck here forever. And we may not see much of a move here. So we could just see a move like that. But overall, as we can see, bias still remains to the downside. If we see a break below, then next target here would be 1.04220. But like I said, if they do not let it allow, or they don't allow it to get worse here, if they just manage the currency, then we could see Euro Swiss franc go sideways here. So for now, bias is bearish, but with this one as well, with caution. Pound Swiss franc here, this one has gone up now. And at this point, I think we could see a turnaround here. So keep an eye on this. Right now, bias is bullish. But as we have seen with other ones here, we could see a reversal here. So keep an eye on that, especially if pound starts to drop across the board. I would look for a drop in this one here as well. So watch out for that. And right now, I would say neutral for pound Swiss franc, because I do expect pound to drop, which means we are going to see, or we are likely to see, pound Swiss franc to drop here as well. But having said that, it is still moving higher, which means it could, once it breaks through this, very likely we are going into the next target and potentially all the way into 1.2400. So keep an eye on that. Because I think things could change with this one. So bias is a neutral for pound Swiss franc. But like I said, I do have these next ones marked up. If it breaks the high, I would look for a further move to the upside. Pound Swiss franc, sorry, dollar Swiss franc here. This one has been interesting because as we can see, it did drop nicely, but now we have a bullish candle close here. US dollar has been strong across the board, which is to be expected, it being a safe haven. And what happens with the US dollar is the reason it tends to do well during time of crisis is because with the other currencies actually, other currencies declining and being all over the place, US dollar being a reserve currency, all the big banks will lend money to the countries in US dollar because they know US dollar will maintain its strength versus the other currencies, or at least it's relatively better than some of the other currencies that tend to decline more during times of crisis. So the big banks that lend to countries will actually do so in US dollars. And that's why there's a demand for US dollars, which keeps the US dollar prices higher. So right now, bias here is bullish. Next target will be 0.9900, which is the top of this. And then if it goes through that, I would look for 1.0030, which is right at the top. But keep in mind, though, it is a strong resistance level. So if price does not go through here, we could see a decline or a move back into this range that it's been trading in. So for now, bias is bullish. And first target here is 0.99. And then 1.0030 are the two targets to the upside. Pound yen here, this one as well, we have seen price move in both directions here. Now we see that price is holding below. So bias is bearish here. And in terms of the targets here, I'm looking at 130.50 as the first target. And then we have 129 as the second target. So bias is bearish here for pound yen. Now we could get a pullback into 133.80 and then a decline. So that's totally reasonable. But bias for now for pound yen is to the downside. Euro yen, this one is looking bearish. As we can see, euro has not been as strong as pound. So the move here, we have a nice bearish engulfing candle close, which gives us a bearish bias for this one. So in terms of the targets here, the first target is So 115.20, and then we're looking at 114 as the second target. So bias here is bearish for euro. But like I said before here, if euro turns around, what could happen here is we just see a bit of a decline and then price goes back into the range. So that's something to keep an eye on. But overall, this is looking bearish. And once we see a decline below this level, because this has been important support level for some time, as we can see, once it breaks through that, we could see a bit of a streak to the downside. So that's something to keep an eye on. But we could also get false breaks like we did here and here. So we have to be careful when trying to basically sell into the lows. But for now, bias is bearish, but only once we see a break below this 116 level would I look for 115 or 114. Till then, we just have to be careful at the lows, but bias is bearish for euro yen. Dollar yen here, this one has gone in both directions here. We saw a decline and now we do have a move to the upside here. So with this one, I am a neutral right now. US dollar overall is strong, so we could see a move, a further move to the upside, but if it doesn't go through 109, then we can see another move to the downside. So with this one, I want to wait and see. So either we get a move like this, or this could just be one of these to the upside, right? So right now, I'm not clear on which direction this wants to go in. So we'll have to wait and see. Right now, I am neutral, but if it goes through 119, I would look for a move higher. But if it gets stuck, sorry, 109, if it gets stuck below 109, I am looking for a move to the downside. So it's a wait and see at this point. Aussie yen here, this one is bearish. We see that price wasn't able to go through this resistance here. For the last 3 weeks, it's been stuck below this resistance. So bias is bearish here. And in terms of our targets here, I'm looking at 63 as the first target and then 60 as the second target. So bias is bearish for Aussie yen. New Zealand yen here, same thing we see for the last 4 weeks here. Actually, price has been stuck below 65.80. So here, looking for price to drop further. 61.70 is the first target. And then we're looking at 59.50 as the second target. So bias is bearish for New Zealand yen. CAD yen here, this one as well. Canadian dollar has been interesting, like I said before. This one, it's basically between Japanese yen and Canadian dollar. With President Trump's statement, oil turned around, which means Canadian dollar turned around here as well. But right now, there has been no confirmation. And Russia has actually said that they have not reached an agreement with Saudi Arabia at this point. So if that fizzles out, that means there's been no agreement of anything and of any sort, then we are likely to see oil drop again, which means we are likely to see Canadian dollar drop again, which means CAD yen here will drop again as well. But right now, the candles from technical perspective here, this does not look it doesn't give us any kind of indication as to where this stands. We have pins in both directions. Overall, bias still remains to the downside, but I would just be cautious because this will be driven more by sentiment than anything else, and sentiment around oil than anything else. And all these politicians and leaders and everybody else has a way of creating sentiment rather than there being a lot of truth behind their words. So they tend to make the markets move. So watch out for that. But for now, bias here is neutral overall, though still looking for a move to the downside, but just keep an eye on oil. So first target here would be 75, but then we'll have to see if it holds above, then this one could go back up. So right now, bias is neutral for CAD yen. All right, so moving on to our commodities now. All right, so this one has been interesting. Silver we did see that price dropped here, but now we have a pin in the bottom which shows a rejection here, but there is still bearishness in this. So my bias here for now is neutral for silver as well. What I'm looking for is essentially a retest of this 14.80 level. If it holds below, I will look for a move lower, but this pin here in the bottom suggests that we could see a move higher. So right now I'm neutral. I am looking for 14.80 as the first target, and if it goes through, then it could go to 15.20. For now though, I would say neutral, but keep an eye out for a move higher, and I would watch both 14.80 and 15.20 as the two levels where we could see price turn around. So neutral bias for silver here. Gold here, gold as well, we see a neutral candle close here. It is, or it was bullish, and then dropped, and it has pulled back from there. So right now, I'm neutral on this one as well. I think we could get a move higher, more towards 1643 basically, but if it doesn't break above this level, which it hasn't done in the last 2 weeks, so if you get a third retest or third test of this level and it holds below, chances are it's coming back down. So right now my first target is 1643, but only if it goes through that would I look for the next target, which is 1690. So for now, I am neutral. I am looking for a push higher, but if it holds below, I will look for a drop. So we'll have to watch the 1643 level. So neutral bias for gold for now. Oil, as we can see, a big move to the upside here. A lot of this came later in the week here as those comments, like I said, those comments from President Trump saying that Russia and Saudi Arabia are likely to reach an agreement. So we'll have to see if this actually goes through. So right now, from technical perspective, we do have a bullish candle close, but we are also fairly close, as we can see, to our resistance here at 31.80. So right now, slightly bullish bias, more from sentiment perspective than the reality, but sentiment does drive the markets. So bullish bias here for oil. First target would be 31.80, and then we're looking at 33.50. But this is where, if that sentiment fizzles out, we are likely to see a move back down. And a lot of it will depend on how the negotiations go between OPEC, Russia, Saudi Arabia, US, all of that. So we'll have to wait and see how things play out there. But for now, slightly bullish bias, and I will leave these levels here because we could see a turn around in oil here. So bullish bias, but with caution here as well. Copper here, copper is looking neutral here. We see that twice price has failed to actually break the resistance level, which means we are likely to see a drop in this. We could see a third retest, and as soon as we see that price holds below this 2.20 level, chances are very high we are looking for price to drop further towards 1.98. So right now, overall bias still remains bearish, but we could see a retest of this 2.20. So that's why I'm neutral. And once it holds below 2.20, then during one of the daily analysis, we're likely to see a further move to the downside here. So keep an eye, but from a weekly perspective, bias is neutral here. Bitcoin here, I do not have the weekend numbers here for Bitcoin because my my broker closes down here, at least the charts that I'm using here. So with this one here, for the 2 weeks here, we are seeing the price is holding below 69.50. It hasn't closed above this level 3 times in a row. We have seen price hold below, which means if you can check the weekend numbers, if it holds below here, we are likely to see a further move to the downside. So overall, we've been seeing a drop and a pullback, and this could give rise to another drop here. So we could see a continuation move. So overall, right now, neutral for Bitcoin, but that may change tomorrow based on the daily move. So we'll take a look at that. For now, this is neutral So somebody's Anthony, thank you. So right now it's at 67.89, which means it's holding below this 69.50 level. So chances are we are going to see a decline in Bitcoin. So neutral bias for now for Bitcoin. S&P 500, so this here we saw a big move up from all the buying that was going on in regards to rebalancing the portfolios. And as we can see now, price is still holding below this 26.50 level for 3 weeks. We have seen that. So bias here is bearish, big rejection. So I'm looking for price to drop here. So in terms of the targets here, we are looking at 2400 as the first target, and then 2280 as the second target here. So bias is bearish for S&P 500. Nasdaq here, same thing. Last 3 weeks, we have seen price hold below this 7,900 level. It hasn't closed above. So looking for a drop. This is a nice rejection. Next target here is, so we are into this support resistance level. And next target here is 7194, so about 7200, and then below that we have 6920. So bias is bearish. I'm looking for a drop for in Nasdaq here. And Dow Jones, same thing. We have a rejection here, as we can see. Now looking for price to move lower here. First target is 20,350, and then below that we are below that we have 19,680. So bias here is bearish again for Dow Jones as well. And then we have DAX here. DAX is also looking bearish. We have, again, a rejection here, nice bearish candle close. Next target here would be 9190, and then we have 8980. So bias is bearish for DAX as well. And then we have FTSE, same thing here. This one, we have a nice bearish candle close here, looking for it to drop further. First target here would be 5,200, and then we have 4950. So bearish bias here for FTSE as well. And last but not least here, we have Nikkei. Nikkei, as we can see, very clearly holding below this previous support resistance level. Nice pin bar here, looking for price to basically drop back towards the bottom. 16,500 will be the target to the downside here for Nikkei. All right, so before we wrap it up here, actually, I just I do have an announcement here, and we talked about this last time as well, but just wanted to let you guys know during this crisis that we are going through right now, I am trying to support all of you. So basically, I'm offering my course, which is the Learn to Trade Forex course. The normal price is around $500, $497. Right now, I'm offering it for 60% off, so it's about $197, $198. And basically, what do you get for this? It includes, basically, we start from the very beginning, introduction to Forex, and then we go through technical analysis, and I share with you the way I look at the markets and different trade setups that I look at. And in order to get this, you do need a coupon code, because regular price still is $497, but the coupon code is "We Got This." And once you go to the checkout, you would need to put this coupon code to get that $300 discount. So your price will be around the $197 mark. So hopefully, while everybody is sitting at home, this will give you an option to learn something. So that's it for now. If you guys have any questions and whatnot, please put it in the comments, and I will be sure to answer them. But that's it for me for now. So have a wonderful trading week. I do a daily market analysis as well, and there's no live call like this for that, but you can check it out on my YouTube channel. So if you just search for Trading with Venus, you will see my daily market analysis there as well. So have a wonderful trading week, and I'll see you again. Bye for now.